The rules of football are changing, and very interestingly so as well for one specific area. We've got an Arsenal loanee getting on the score sheet and an absolute nightmare for Arsenal's Champions League opponents this coming week. This is the Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is our Arsenal News Show. Joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. at UK time. Thank you as always for joining me and making this a part of your morning routines. Apologies for the additional lateness. I know I'm usually late these days. I have a busy mornings going on. Yeah, 6 minutes is quite a big jump. So I do apologise for that. There's been stuff going on in the house this morning, just trying to sort some stuff out. But good morning to you all. Thank you as always for tuning in. Really appreciate you. Black Shine, Peter, Glenn, John Knott, Shari, Jitty, Stevie, Steve, Ronald, Paul, Martin, Knowledge, Matt G. You've got Zoom. We've got James, who says it's very indeed cold in Bognor, in Bognor this morning. Got a family down in Bognor Regis. Martin, Tom, Colin, John. I always like to read out more because it's a Sunday. I'm very appreciative for those joining in on a Sunday. John says, morning all. New Gooner incoming today. Hopefully my granddaughter will be born on this Sunday. And Arsenal have taken the week off for you as well to enjoy it. What a wonderful moment for your family. So there you go. Lovely stuff. Timmy says, now you're a family man now, Tom. No need. I wish I could use that as an excuse. No one else is in the house. No one else. I haven't got a child to be caring for. The missus is away this weekend. It's just one of those moments where you think you've organised something and then you get a message that just spirals your morning out of control. So, apologies again for the late start today. Let's jump, though. Make sure you drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. As I said, if you are tuning on a Sunday morning, you are the legends of the channel. It takes some special effort to tune in on a Sunday morning. And to those partners, family members, and other halves that are listening in the background, you're also very appreciated for putting up with the individual that is indeed listening to this on a Sunday morning. It's God's day. What are you doing? Good morning to you all, though. Really appreciate you tuning in. And those listening on catch-up, of course. Let's jump, though, to today's stories. This is not a picture of Thomas Rositzky. Have I bothered? I know I had a crazy morning. Have I bothered to even write the correct taglines? I remember we did the live show the other week, and Harry went on a bit of on a very complimentary run about how I go to the effort of making a slideshow each morning for you guys, let alone do a show at 8 a.m. in the morning. But apparently I don't even bother to do the correct, you're seeing me do it now, but apparently I don't even bother to do the correct stuff. Let's see if we can sort that out. Come on, let's share the screen one more time. It's not working now. There we go. Right, we've changed it. It's now working. You should see the correct tag. There we go. Fabio Vieira has scored a goal. You'll believe it or not. He's scored a goal for Porto. Arsenal could do with some people scoring goals. And I imagine this will not result in any Arsenal fans turning around and saying that Arsenal made a mistake and should never have allowed another extra attacking player to leave the club when they indeed are in need of more attacking players and could have indeed used some more. Well, yes, Fabio Vieira scored again. It is good. We want him to do well. We want him to continue to do as well as we can feasibly ask for, to be honest, don't we? We want him to be achieving a relative level of success, so much so that it doesn't make us think, oh, we were absolute idiots for letting him go, but enough that it makes other clubs potentially look at him and go, yeah, there's a decent player there. Maybe we should try and sign him in the summer. So the more goals he scores to a decent level, the more assists he gets to an okay level, I'm absolutely fine with. He has 3 goals and 3 assists in 17 league games this season, 4 goals, 4 assists across the whole competition. He's played 30 matches for Porto on loan this season. Plenty of games, plenty of experience. Hopefully that's enough to get him a move either back to Porto or Portugal or somewhere else in the world, and Arsenal get some money in, of course, as well for the summer. But Porto getting the benefit of someone who can indeed score a goal. Moving to the law changes. Now, this is a really interesting story that dropped yesterday. Martin Ziegler of course, of the Times yesterday, reporting that the refereeing decision-making around goalkeepers is soon going to change. We're going to see quite a significant difference, actually, in the way in which referees behave around goalkeepers. So at the moment, goalkeepers are pretty much free to waste as much time as feasibly possible. It feels like this is how it goes. If a team are winning a game, the goalkeeper will hold on to the ball for an excessive amount of time on a number of occasions until they're booked. And barely ever will you ever see a goalkeeper given a second yellow card for time wasting. I don't think I've ever witnessed it. It may have happened. I'm sure it has happened, but I've never personally witnessed a goalkeeper getting sent off for a second yellow card when the first yellow card was also for the same offence, being time wasting. So the rules now are changing so that I'll read you the article. The International Football Association Board, IFAB, has approved a number of changes to the laws of the game for 25-26 after trials have shown a major positive impact where goalkeepers have been holding on to the ball for too long. The IFAB has unanimously decided to amend Law 12.2, an indirect free kick. The amendment means that if a goalkeeper holds the ball for longer than 8 seconds, with the referee using a visual 5-second countdown, the referee will award a corner kick to the opposing team rather than the current indirect kick for more than 6 seconds. So this is a really interesting moment because now I don't know about you, but I have never, ever seen an indirect free kick given to a team for a goalkeeper holding the ball for 6 seconds. I've watched Gabriel Jesus in games stand by the goalie's area and hold his hand up in the air and start counting well beyond 6 seconds, and still no indirect free kick is ever given. I've never seen it. I've never seen an indirect free kick given for a goalkeeper holding onto the ball too long. And the thing is now, this time frame has increased from 6 seconds to 8 seconds. So for an infraction that I'd never seen before for 6 seconds, I now imagine I'm definitely never going to see because it's going to go to 8 seconds. We know that goalkeepers hold the ball on for longer than 6 seconds. We know that referees do not implement these rules for long enough and strictly enough. They never do it. I've never seen it happen. I've never seen the 6-second rule ever implemented in my life. I didn't even know that you got an indirect free kick if a goalkeeper holds onto the ball for longer than 6 seconds. Where does that free kick occur? Does it occur where they're standing? Because obviously you can have an indirect free kick in the box, and you see those comical scenarios where you have about 10 people on the goal line. But I've never seen it enforced. So the fact that this is changing is interesting because I think it's a better scenario, and maybe it will encourage referees to actually give corners rather than indirect free kicks, because they're quite significant changes to the game if indeed you do give an indirect free kick in the box. It's quite a big goal scoring opportunity. So I guess that's why referees kind of stand back in terms of enforcing that rule. But the visual 5-second countdown is the only part of this that makes me think that it's worth it. So during that 8 seconds, we imagine the referee will have like a mental note of 3 seconds of the keeper holding the ball, and he'll then start to count on his hand 5 seconds. If it gets past 5 seconds, it's a corner. Now, hold on. Sneezing back. I think that this could be great, and it will hopefully speed up the process. But why is it 8 seconds, not 6 seconds? Because surely that just means that they know they're not enforcing the 6-second rule. Like, surely not. And secondly, are we ever going to see a goalkeeper now just not, kick the ball away after 8 seconds? Or maybe they'll just throw it to the floor if they're holding on to it, of course, which they can do. But I think what we might see as a result is a lot of opposition players standing around the box a lot more, holding on, counting. Yeah, I don't know how this is going to go. I think it's probably a good change, but I never saw really an implementation of the old rule. So how am I ever convinced that we're going to see an implementation of this new one? That's kind of where my head's at on that one. And lastly, our final story of the day is another interesting one. PSV have lost their last 2 matches. Now, I I had the absolute pleasure of speaking to Eredivisie Mike, who of course you can follow on Twitter. If you haven't done so already, just type in Eredivisie Mike, it will come up. And I learned effectively, and I wasn't really aware of this, and I probably should have been, but their form has been pretty awful over the last, 2 months. PSV since Christmas have just been continuously dropping points. And me and Michael Statham, as I said, Eredivisie Mike on Twitter, he's the Dutch football expert at Football Oranha. We had a really interesting conversation about PSV and their record and stuff and how their form has kind of just dipped off a cliff, basically. They've fallen behind Ajax in the Eredivisie title race. Ajax, the team, of course, that fell away themselves so recently. Well, Go Ahead Eagles managed to secure a 3-2 win. They went 1-0 up in the game. Oliver Antman. And is his name actually Oliver Antman? I completely missed this when I was looking at this. Yes, it is. Amazing. Oliver Antman scored in the 23rd minute. That's brilliant. It's probably Antman or Antman. I assume he's probably Dutch. Antman. It's probably pronounced like that. But just for comedic effect, Oliver Antman scored in the 23rd minute. Luke de Jong scored, and then Noah Lang scored in 4 minutes to give PSV a 2-1 lead. But then in the 74th minute, Victor Edvardsen scored to equalise. And then in the 87th minute, our hero, Oliver Antman, scored again in the 87th minute to give Go Ahead Eagles the victory. This is back-to-back defeats of PSV. He's Finnish. Thank you, again. I appreciate the correction. All of the team, of course, have now managed back-to-back wins over PSV. The first one came in PSV's own stadium in the Cup on Wednesday, and a 2-1 win that knocked them out of the tournament. And now they've managed a 3-2 win at home. Now, the problem that Arsenal have got is that in doing so, Go Ahead Eagles scored 5 goals in those 2 games. The likelihood of seeing Arsenal score 5 goals in 2 games at the moment is about likely as it being Paul Rudd who actually scored the goals for Go Ahead Eagles at the weekend. The likelihood is very, very low indeed, unfortunately. But it should give some encouragement to Arsenal that they are having these struggles. Defensively, PSV are atrocious right now. And I think the biggest area that Arsenal need to be utilising this weakness is from those set pieces. Defensively, aerially, they are very questionable indeed. And Arsenal will need to take encouragement from this, and they will need to try and utilise that ability of theirs to score from set pieces and from crosses, because aerially they are very, very suspect. So it does give encouragement to Arsenal. It hopefully is a sign that there is hope to be had. I'm looking forward to flying off to Eindhoven, or flying off to Amsterdam tomorrow morning ahead of a week of interesting moments for us. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it, and I'm hoping that Arsenal can get a result in the Champions League away at PSV before bringing that result back to the Emirates the following week. Well, let's go to part 2 of the show and your questions and more right after this. Let's go to your chat box questions now, shall we? If we haven't already, please make sure you drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new with those notifications turned on. Thank you, as always, for being here, especially on a Sunday. Morgan says, you missed a great opportunity to respond with the he's not finished. He's 23. Hey, very nice, Morgan. Very, very nice, Morgan, indeed. Matthew Freese says, appreciate the correction. Gotta love that attitude. Of course. If I've made a mistake, if I've made an error, if I've called someone the wrong nationality, please do correct me. What kind of proud a-hole is going to get annoyed at being corrected about that? You've made a mistake. Hold your hands up. Own it. I actively encourage it. But yes, absolutely. Did Matthew Freese, did you know, Matthew Freese, that you share the same name, unless you are the same Matthew Freese, as a American soccer goalkeeper? Matt Freese plays for New York City FC. He's a goalkeeper. I've interviewed him myself when he was playing for Philadelphia Union back in the day. It was one of my first ever player interviews when I was breaking into the field of journalism, Matt Freese. Yes, he's 26 now. Let's have a quick look at his career. He's 26 now. Has he made an appearance with the US national team? He's been in the squad from the looks of things, but he's not yet made his debut for for the US national team. He's on the bench in the last 2 friendlies against Venezuela and Costa Rica. But there you go, Matthew Freese. Did you know that? No, Matthew did not know that. New favourite player. You can follow his career. How funny. I wrote my Gooners as Tom yesterday. Made my mind up. Don't sign Cunha. He's a time bomb. Mateus Cunha, of course. I mean, there was obviously FA Cup football yesterday, in which we didn't really have to pay any attention to it. Yeah, I mean, Mateus Cunha scored an absolute banger in their game against Bournemouth yesterday. Absolutely fantastic strike. But in terms of not signing him, is it really is the fact that his red card in that game for punching, kicking, and headbutting, as the headline goes, Bournemouth's Milos Kirkos, enough to turn you off the idea? Of course, he has been in a few problems before, because we know he got in an incident recently which saw him get did he receive a ban in the end for that big scrap after one of those Wolves games? He has got a bit of a live wire, it seems, Cunha. Is that putting people off? I wonder if it has. Yeah, Nix has had a couple of those incidents this season already. So Cunha putting people off, but he did score a very good goal as well. Gooner 76 is go to the Bulldog Cafe. Oh, this is going to be a joke that goes way over my head. It's going to go so over my head. And I'm almost embarrassed that I don't get it immediately. Roscoe says, a team on a losing streak about to face Arsenal. What can go wrong? Indeed. Ronald says, if you can't get a 30-goal striker like Isak or Gyökeres, would you like a goal-scoring wide player like a Lookman or a dribbler like Williams? Arsenal have to sign a striker that can score well upwards of 20 goals at least. Ronald, I'm almost saying here that there's no compromise. There's no compromise for me here. Arsenal have to go and add a striker that can score and aim to, at least, that we feel has got the capacity to score at least 30 goals. That's got to be the aim. It's an uncompromising aim for me, for Arsenal, that I think they have to go and find someone who they believe across all competitions can score 30 plus goals. That's what I think we have to compromise on. If you think that Williams is going to give Arsenal more goals than Gabriel Martinelli does or Trossard does, I'm sorry, but you're mistaken, because that's not who Nico Williams is. Nico Williams is not a prolific goal scorer. That's not just based off of this season, by the way, because I know he's had a poorer season this season. That's just based off who he is as a player. He's not a prolific, wide goal-scoring forward. This season, he has 6 goals and has got 7 assists across all competitions in 33 games. Last season, of course, the season where he was very much on the up, he scored 8 goals, but he got 16 assists. And it's the assists, it's the creation of Nico Williams that is the key factor. So if you're wanting to sign a goal-scoring winger, I'm not putting Nico Williams in that bracket, because he just isn't that for me. He's not a goal-scoring wide forward. If you're bringing him in because you want somebody who's going to be more impactful, more creative, more direct, better at taking players on and creating opportunities, then absolutely. If you want a goal-scoring wide player, then yes, Ademola Lookman, you're more likely to move towards somebody like him. He's definitely more of a goal scorer than he is a creator, but he still does create goals as well. Either of those two would be very decent signings, I think, for Arsenal, but the priority has to be a player that we have the aim of scoring 30 goals. Clive says, always, the most important question, who is that player for us? Who do we think is out there that can score 30 plus goals across all competitions, across 50 to 60 games, if indeed they're fit enough to play those many games? Who do we think we can sign that can score that many goals? Now, right now, do I think that Benjamin Sesko could come into Arsenal next season and score 30 plus goals? Probably not. Do I think that he can come into Arsenal and score 30 plus goals eventually? Yes, I do. I do think he has the ability. I do think he has the talent to be able to do that. I think he would adjust over time. He might even surprise me in doing his first season, but I would be surprised by that. Do I think a player like Victor Gyökeres could score over 30 goals? Potentially. The problem with Victor Gyökeres is obviously he's been playing for the best team in Portugal, and that enables you a platform to score lots and lots and lots of goals. And so that, for me, is why the Gyökeres question mark exists. But Alexander Isak for Newcastle is already on potentially a record to score as many goals as we want from a centre forward. But the likelihood of Arsenal getting their deal done for Alexander Isak, he's got 21 goals in 30 games this season, and he's got probably about 10 to 12 games left to go. It's very possible that he could score 30 goals. He would be incredibly expensive. And the issue with signing Alexander Isak is that if you were to spend the majority of, let's say, our summer budget on him, and then he was to get injured, which is a very big possibility, especially for joining a club like Arsenal, you then lose that investment. I'd love to see Alexander Isak sign, but I'm only open to signing Alexander Isak for what is a reasonable fee, a reasonable price tag. And for me, I'm not sure that Arsenal could get Isak, even if indeed Newcastle missed out on Champions League football. I'm not sure that they could even convince him to join or convince Newcastle to sell for what wasn't already a reasonable price tag. A lot of people were looking, and me included, at Santiago Jimenez, who moved to AC Milan during the January transfer window since his move from Feyenoord. He's managed to score in his first 2 opening games for Milan, but failed to score in his last 2. In terms of playing in the Italian Cup, he didn't score in their game against Roma. And in terms of the Champions League, he did score against his old club, Feyenoord, but was unable to do enough to help get through across the 2 legs. Not sure necessarily if that's a good example then of somebody, of course, who moves from a league like the Dutch Eredivisie, similar to the Portuguese league, playing for one of the bigger teams, and then do those numbers translate? I'm not sure. But Gyökeres, I know as a player, will be a lot on everyone's minds for a reason, because he scored a hell of a lot of goals. But I'm not sure that Gyökeres is the answer. I think there's too many unknowns with Victor Gyökeres, and I think I'd be more, and especially at his age, because in the summer he'll be 27. So if you're investing in Gyökeres, you're investing in a striker that is going to be as good as he is right now for however many years. And if he doesn't transition to the Premier League in time, it's going to be a big, big problem. It's interesting looking at his record, of course, after Ruben Amorim left. Since the turn of the year, or rather since he had a thigh injury in February. This month of February, in 3 games in the league, he scored 1 goal. In the Champions League, he failed to score in their playoff match against Borussia Dortmund, although he only came off the bench, I think, in that game. Looking at the latest cup round, he didn't score in their cup win over Gil Vicente. I think maybe since Ruben Amorim left, there has been a downturn in Gyökeres' form as well. Clive says we are going to make a striker. That guy to score 30 goals is too expensive. We have to think collectively in relation to goals, in my honest opinion. Is that for you a player like a Sesko then, Clive? Because that, for me, the most likely player I think that Arsenal can get that could potentially become that player is a Benjamin Sesko. I'm struggling to look at others. Ekatike, Clive brings up Sesko, Semenyo, and Williams are the favourites, and we need at least 3. The interesting thing about Ekatike, of course, is that he plays and has played in kind of a 2-forward role with Omar Marmoush with Frankfurt when he was there. And so is he now going to be able to play that type of role with Arsenal? Would Arsenal's system change to bring in a player like a Hugo Ekatike? I don't know, is the answer. Since Marmoush has left in January, Marmoush left quite early in January, didn't he? So I think against Borussia Dortmund, Ekatike's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games. So his scoring rate's not exactly dropped. He's taken on more of the ownership of it, I guess, as well. He's definitely played to look at. I'm curious to see how the rest of his season goes. And of course, he's already had kind of a chance, if you like. Was he not a PSG? I think previously. And they kind of ironically, I think, brought in Ekatike to replace Randall Kolo Muani alongside Marmoush as well. But yes, he was at PSG. Didn't really click for him. But he's only 22 years of age, and now playing in a different environment, he's getting a lot more joy. There is the Bundesliga effect. I don't know if anyone buys into it or not. I don't know if I buy into it or not. But the Bundesliga effect, of course, with Sesko and Ekatike, is it something that we have to take into account? I'm not sure. Jasper says, how quickly are we going to buy Sesko in the summer? Are we going to be going in straight away? I certainly hope so. I want to see Arsenal going in early and getting business done. I feel like we've got the financial freedom to be able to do that. I don't really want to see Arsenal languishing and not doing the business that we need to do very quickly. So for me, I absolutely want to see Arsenal going in very quick with these. And Clive says, Sesko is always my choice. It's because I told him to. It's because I told him that he was the right choice. And says, is that Ant-Man in the chat? Says, little off the park, Tom, but could Mateta be made a 20-plus goal a season striker? I'm not sure. I think that Mateta, I'm kind of feeling very similar about Mateta as I did, ironically, about Zaha. Again, Mateta's 27 years of age. He's at Crystal Palace. He's the main man there. I'm not sure that Jean-Philippe Mateta is going to move to Arsenal and suddenly become an amazing centre-forward. He's the type of striker that I can see Spurs signing. I get the Solanke vibes off Mateta. I'm getting the Solanke vibes off him. So, and by the way, what an awful challenge we saw yesterday from the Millwall goalkeeper. I mean, if you could ever have more than a 3-match ban, that is, without a doubt, more than a 3-match ban. Awful red card. What a horrendous challenge. But not entirely surprised based upon the club it came from. Paul says, why aren't we unearthing gems from the lower leagues? Wharton, Eze, Elise, and Rogers are opportunities that we've missed out on. I guess, Paul, because the reason is that besides Andrew Robertson, can you name me one player from the lower leagues who's moved to a Champions League club and it's worked out the same as a very unique option in Andrew Robertson? I may be proved wrong, and that's why I ask these questions live, because I like to have these different options. Is there another example of a Championship player? Oliver Grealish doesn't count. He was at Villa in the Premier League for a fair chunk of time. So no, well, I don't think you can count Grealish. And he moved for £100 million. So I don't think you can have Grealish. I'm talking about like little gems, little small signings, like between 5 and 20 million quid. I just want to know any examples that you've got, because it's very rare that happens, that a player from the lower league signs for an elite level Champions League club and goes. What usually happens is they make the step up to another club like a Palace and then make that next step. Morgan Rogers is a really good one. Morgan Rogers is definitely a good one. But again, he joined Villa and then they became a Champions League club this season. So I'm kind of looking more at the Arsenals, the Chelseas, the Man Uniteds, and I know that they're not in the Champions League at the moment, but you know what I mean. Just those clubs that we consider the usual big six, of which we are. Have any of those lower league players moved to those clubs and done it? Dele Alli, it's a good shout. Obviously, it's a shame, really. I mean, it depends how you view it, really. From a human standpoint, it's definitely a shame. Gyökeres from Coventry, again, is not going to the club that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about a Sporting. I'm talking about a club of the caliber of Arsenal here, or a club of the caliber of Liverpool, because I can only really think of Andrew Robertson. People in here are putting Bellingham. I see Matt saying Bellingham again. That was a huge fee still. I think it was something like 30 million quid they still paid Birmingham for Jude Bellingham, and considered at the time one of the best young players. I'm struggling beyond. We have Dele Alli right now. I don't know what Dele Alli's fee was for MK Dons back in the day. Dele Alli and Andrew Robertson are our two legit examples that we can have. Morgan Rogers, a little bit, but again, it's not necessarily to the team that I'm looking for. 5 million quid was Dele Alli, so there you go. So at the moment, I'll give you Rogers, as I said before, Robertson and Dele Alli. They're the three. And as I say, it's really thin on the ground. And you can't have Grealish. He moved for £100 million. You can't have Jack Grealish. Rob Holding from Bolton. It's not a bad shout, but again, it's not the caliber of player we're really talking about. Alexis Robertson was a Premier League player. I know what you mean. He was playing for Hull. I think he did play in the Premier League with Hull. Did he play a season in the Championship before he made that switch to Liverpool? Robertson and fellow holder Harry Maguire recommended to Everton. The combination of a £20 million deal, but Everton rejected it in 2017. Yes, so it was the year after Hull were in the Premier League. So I guess even Robertson doesn't count. It's like, again, another example of another player. Semenyo is another player. I think, what was it, Bristol City before moving to Bournemouth? Ramsdale, people are saying. Again, Ramsdale was at another Premier League club. You're not getting the parameters of this. They need to have been, when they moved, at a club in the lower divisions. I know I'm moaning considering I got it wrong as well. And they need to have moved to a club of the caliber of Arsenal. And I'm talking kind of the last 10 years minimum. That Adam Wharton, you're not getting the concept. I can say this a million times. I'm going to go teacher voice in a second. You're not getting the concept of what we're talking about. I just stop shouting Jenkinson at me. Jenkinson is not good enough. With respect to Carl, I like Carl, but he's not the caliber we're talking about here. Robertson has gone on to be one of the best players. Ali, during his time at Spurs, was a very good player. Mo Salah did not come from one of the lower leagues. He came from Basel. I'm talking about Championship, League 1, League 2. That was the question. The question was, why haven't Arsenal looked at signing a player from one of those lower leagues and then make an impact? And the answer to that question is, well, the reason we haven't is because barely any ever do. So, yeah, I'm afraid you can't have that. Someone says Gareth Bale, was Southampton in the Championship when he moved to Spurs? Let's have a look. Was Gareth Bale in the Championship with Southampton before he moved to Spurs? His final game for Southampton was in the first leg of the Championship playoff semi-final against Derby County, and then he signed for 10 million. So you can have Gareth Bale. That's a good shout. Nice one. Ronaldo, Zidane, yes, Maradona. Yeah, you're really grasping. You're really grasping the concept. You've really got this. You've absolutely nailed it. You've nailed it, people. If you've got any further suggestions, drop them in the chat box below. I'd love to hear some of your genuine thoughts on this because it's quite an interesting topic. I don't think it happens very often. I don't think it happens often enough for us to turn around and be like, why haven't Arsenal done this loads more? Because I don't think there are enough examples. But yes, there you go. There you go. In answer to your question, Paul, not many ever do. So that's why we haven't. So yeah, and even Robertson doesn't count, it turns out, either. To be fair, neither does Wharton Eze or Elise. Rodgers, I think Rodgers is probably the best example in recent times. But again, he didn't move to an Arsenal, he moved to a Villa. So there's that to take into account as well. I'm going to move on now. Thank you so much for listening. This conversation has tested my patience. But thank you to you all for listening, as always. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your weekend. Enjoy your Sunday. There will not be a live show tomorrow morning because I will be on a plane flying to Amsterdam tomorrow ahead of the game against Eindhoven. So there will hopefully be a pre-recorded episode, potentially, if I can find an opportunity to pre-record one. If not, there won't be one, but hopefully there will be. But yes, very much looking forward to that. And the next time you see me live will be from a hotel room in Eindhoven. So yeah, looking forward to that. Have a fantastic rest of your Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.